prices soar, gas prices spike as the price of war starts hitting home. This is Now You Know. I'm Rob Snow.
Navigating the issues that matter to you. It's Now You Know with Rob Snow on News Radio.
Canadians are noticing already the impact of the war in Iran. Overnight, gas prices shot up across the country. Many cities saw increases of about 6 cents a liter. For example, drivers in Montreal are now paying more than $1.62 a liter for regular unleaded. Prices in the Ottawa area jumped to around $1.45 a liter. Prices in Winnipeg up 6 cents a liter, hitting $1.38. That's because oil prices are up almost 18% in the last 5 days, with oil futures currently trading at 75.90 cents US, up 6.5% today alone. That's expected. In fact, Prime Minister Carney predicted as much when he spoke to a business audience in Mumbai just a few days ago, calling the jump in energy prices a risk premium.
When you go back to commodity markets and inflation, it comes at a time when commodity price inflation has been lower. Oil markets have been soft as a whole, so there'll be some firmness and some spike on that.
For Alberta Premier Danielle Smith, though, she sees an opportunity. At a news conference, Premier Smith said the instability in the Middle East and especially a possible disruption to the key shipping route, the Strait of Hormuz, highlights the need to build more pipelines.
We're watching with interest about what our friends and allies are going to need. There are, as I understand it, a number of ships that are anchored in the Strait of Hormuz and some threats about not granting passage. And if that occurs, that's going to cause a lot of disruption. But we're here to help. But part of the way in which we can help is, of course, with expansions to the West Coast pipelines. The fact that Trans Mountain allows for us to have a clear line of sight to our Asian partners in order to be able to assist them. The fact that there's already an expansion that has been announced, and it just underscores the need for our 1 million barrel a day bitumen pipeline to the West Coast, because if this kind of uncertainty continues, it just demonstrates that the world and our trading partners and allies need to have a stable source of supply, and that's what we are.
The provincial government in Alberta just released a budget with a massive deficit and several tax increases, all blamed on lower oil prices. Nate Horner, the province's finance minister, said for every $1 drop in the price of oil, the government of Alberta loses $750 million in royalties. But he said it's too early to know what this recent jump in oil prices will mean for the province's coffers.
Since the markets opened yesterday, obviously been watching. It's been between 70 and 74, so a fairly dramatic increase. We'll continue to monitor that. We want to have conservative forecasts. We do want the potential for upside for the province. We don't want to overestimate that to make budget day go easier for myself and the government. I would much rather the actuals at the end of the year be in a better position. But very much the markets are pricing the risk right now. If the strait remains closed for a long time, you'll see that reflected in the price. But as the risk dissipates, it will quickly become a supply and demand calculation again. And, that's what led us to our forecast in the first place.
At the federal level, the Minister of Energy and Natural Resources, Tim Hodgson, says he's taking more calls from other countries now. They want to know how quickly Canada can expand energy exports, especially LNG. Natural gas prices have been on the rise because of supply disruptions in Qatar, the world's second largest LNG exporter. Just last week, before the war even started, Hodgson was telling MPs in Ottawa the world wants a lot more of Canada's LNG.
From a geopolitical perspective, what I hear everywhere I go, whether it's Germany, whether it's the UK, whether it's China, whether it's India, whether it's my colleagues who were recently in Japan or Korea, what we hear is all of those countries are interested in energy transition. They view LNG as a really important transition fuel. It gives them a much cleaner alternative to what most of them are doing today, which is burning coal. And what we hear over and over again is with the dramatic increase in electricity around the AI phenomenon, our allies expect to be using that transition fuel, expect to use a lot more of it for a longer period of time.
As with oil shipments, 20% of the world's LNG travels through the Strait of Hormuz. Prime Minister Mark Carney's in Australia. He is supposed to have a news conference at some point today. Reporters traveling with the Prime Minister on this three-country tour have been frustrated because the Prime Minister has not made himself available to news reporters since the U.S. and Israel attacked Iran. Those reporters want to ask him about his statement that backed this U.S.-led action against Iran. So far, they've only been able to ask questions to members of his cabinet, like David McGuinty, the Minister of National Defense.
We've been following the situation in Iran for quite a while, carefully. We're getting just-in-time updates on the situation in the Middle East now. And the Prime Minister and the government decided from the beginning of this that we would support this incursion. But we're also calling for a diplomatic end to it. We very much would prefer to see peace and a ceasefire. And that's what my colleague, Minister Anand, is driving forward now with her colleagues around the world. And so we'll see where this takes us. Canadians know this is a difficult, complicated, and unfortunate situation. We would all rather see peaceful dialogue. But we have a situation now where two sovereign countries, have decided to prosecute a war. Canada's not involved in that war at this time.
On the stock market, markets are lower right now at midday. The Toronto Stock Exchange main index down 800 points, a loss of about 2.3% on the day. All the U.S. indices are lower, not as low as they were earlier in the session, but still the Dow Jones Industrial Average is down close to 700 points, a loss of 1.4%. Same for the NASDAQ and the S&P 500, both down about 1.4%. The Canadian dollar holding steady right now, 73.18 cents U.S. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. This is News Radio.
There is no question Rob won't get answered.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues
On News Radio.
He's back for his weekly take on this complicated world of ours. Professor Ian Lee is with the Sprott School of Business at Carleton University. Welcome back.
My pleasure, Rob. Thank you.
Well, gas prices jumped 6 cents a liter in Ottawa last night. That didn't take long. There are worries. Higher oil prices could mean higher inflation. Higher inflation means higher interest rates. Higher interest rates could be bad for economic growth. What do you see as the economic impacts of this war?
It's an excellent question. Of course, it's consuming everybody. The markets are reacting. That is to say, the Dow is down just over 2% today. The capital markets are moving down because of the uncertainty. So they're noticing. And I'm going to give you a sort of a short answer, and it sounds like I'm ducking, but I'm not. It all depends on the duration. If this ends and winds down in the next, let's say, 2 weeks or something like that, and I'm just saying roughly 2 weeks, then the problem will go away. Markets will recalibrate, come back to normal, and everything will be fine. If it looks like it's going to be extended beyond that, then the risks become greater. I think the greatest risk is energy itself, of course. And I know this area. I've talked to you about this. I taught 10 times over 10 years, once a year, in Iran, right at the Strait of Hormuz. And there was our university had a partnership with a university in Tehran, and they had a school set up on Kehewin Island. If anybody looks at the map, there's this island that's right at the narrowest part in the Gulf. and we could actually see the oil tankers. Our classroom was on the edge of the water, the Gulf of the Persian Gulf, and we could see the tankers going by. It was surreal, and so I'm very aware of that. And the Strait of Hormuz is very, very narrow, and of course, if the Iranian Navy sinks some vessels to block it, then it's going to choke the supply of oil. 20% of the world's supply of oil moves through the Persian Gulf, not just from Iran. Remember, Kuwait's in there. Saudi Arabia's in there, too, in the Persian Gulf. That's why they're called the Gulf countries. And so the point is it'll be very disruptive. I think that the American military, they're not stupid in the Pentagon. And they know this, and they've got all kinds of contingency plans. I saw a general. I've been watching it night and day, Rob, and on CNN, and they've these retired generals, and they said it's at the very top of the list to completely eradicate the Iranian Navy, and they're doing it. It's not a big Navy to start with, and so I know I'm sounding a bit optimistic here, but the firepower of the American military is so gigantic and enormous. They spend more than the next 10 countries of the world, including China. So I don't think that I think the Iranians are going to run out of, drones and ballistic missiles and so forth. And so I think that this will come to a head. And of course, at the end of it, there could be a backup plan by the Americans to pull back, and to say, look, we're declaring victory. We've emasculated the Iranian government. We've removed all of their offensive missiles. We've removed all of their launchers, et cetera, which they're doing day by day.
Right.
So I think it will. This is not going to go on for months.
But what if it's protracted, though? What if it is protracted, though?
Well,
as conflicts can be in that region.
Yes, and I'm not. I don't want to be Pollyannish and say it's not possible. Let's do it at the macro level. It's not going to be good for Trump, okay? It's not going to be good for the global economy. But, we're from Canada. We are Canadians. So let's talk about the impact on Canada. This is paradoxically, unfortunately, but fortunately for Canada, reinforcing the message of those people, and I've been one of them for years, saying that the Trudeaus and the Guilbeaults and the environmentalists who said, peak oil, we're not going to be using oil in just a few short years, they have been proved wrong empirically and factually. The numbers came out today. Well, they've been out for a while, but I found them today. China imports 11.6 million barrels a day. 80% comes from Iran, and the rest was coming from Venezuela up until very recently. China's its manufacturing might is completely dependent on that cheap oil. And so that's an important point. And a lot of the oil, their oil is coming from the Middle East. People like Daniel Smith and me and others have been saying, look, it's not just that we've got better environmental standards. A lot of people talk about clean oil in Canada because we have very high standards. We do. But my argument has always been a much, I think, more compelling argument. The Middle East is a cesspool of instability. There is only one democracy in the Middle East. It's Israel, and they don't have any oil. Every oil producer in the Middle East are dictatorships, not just Iran. And so we are much more reliable than these other countries. This is an argument for more pipelines and for increasing our energy exports.
Okay. There's certainly talk about that today. We'll be right back, though. I want to switch gears and talk about something completely different and get your thoughts on, it's really one of your oldest complaints, supply-managed dairy. There's some compelling arguments being made by a friend of yours, Sylvain Charlebois, the food professor, saying we have to do something about supply management in this country. It has to be saved from itself. We'll talk about that when we come back with Professor Ian Lee from the Sprott School on News Radio.
You have questions.
Now you know with Rob Snow has the answers.
On News Radio.
Here with Professor Ian Lee from the Sprott School of Business at Carleton University. Never a fan of supply management in agriculture. I think you and I have been talking about this for 20 years now. Not much has changed. Your friend Sylvain Charlebois from Dalhousie University has a column in the Post Media papers. He actually said it's not that the Americans want to bring milk into Canada. They don't want to bring milk into Canada. They want to bring milk ingredients into Canada, like the raw materials of the dairy side. But he says if we don't do something about it, Washington is going to do it for us. He has some suggestions. Use federal funds to buy out producers who do not wish to compete in a gradually more open environment. Consolidate around farms that are prepared to modernize, innovate, and scale. What do you think of that?
Listen, he's first off, I agree with him. That's not my preferred solution. But he's doing a modified Australian solution. The Australians and New Zealand governments, they were the only other two countries on the planet Earth, 3 countries in the world that had supply management. So everybody understands one more time, very quickly. Supply management fixes the price. It's the only industry where we regulate, other than rent controls, where we actually, the government fixes the price of the ticket, of the butter, of the milk, and they regulate the price at double the market price. They literally mark it up 100%, and then they give the quotas. So first off, it's incredibly immoral because it exploits the most vulnerable people in society, low income, the children of low income families. I mean, how these MPs, all of them, can sleep at night knowing that they are so harmful and viciously exploiting low income people, I don't know. I truly don't. But beyond that, Sylvain brings out a point that it has hurt this industry. When it was brought in to save the dairy farms, there was 150,000 dairy farmers. Today, there's 8,500. The supply management has been unbelievably catastrophically damaging and destructive to dairy farms and dairy farmers. It has blown up the industry. So he's saying he's proposing bringing in reforms. That's exactly what Australia and New Zealand did. They basically bought them out. Now, they did it not voluntarily. They told every dairy farmer, we are buying you out, whether you like it or not, and we're going to base it, the newest farmers who just bought their quota rights recently, they got the biggest buyout, and the farmers who'd been there for years and years and years, they got smaller buyouts. So it's prorated to how long you'd been a farmer. But they basically bought them out. So what Sylvain is talking about is sort of a modified version of what Australia did. I applaud it because the whole idea is to bring in a reform to make the industry much more dynamic, competitive, and innovative, because this is the least innovative agricultural sector in all Canada. When you compare them to beef or the other segments of the agriculture market, these people are in the Stone Age because there's no need to innovate.
Oh, come on. In the Stone Age? Come on.
Rob, listen, the whole logic, and Nobel Prizes have been given on this, of innovation is you innovate because you're afraid of your competitor beating the crap out of you.
I've been to some modern dairy operations where the robots are milking the cows and the farmer's controlling it on his iPhone, for crying out loud. I would call that the Stone Age.
You should go and look at the productivity metrics for this industry. They're terrible. All right. That's what Sylvain is saying. All
right. We'll pick it up some other time, maybe 20 years from now. We'll probably be still talking about it. Bye-bye. Professor Ian Lee from the Sprott School of Business at Carleton University with us every Tuesday, although he'll be here Monday next week. Focus Alberta, an interesting one coming up next. This is News Radio.
No question goes unasked or unanswered.
Now You Know with Rob Snow returns on News Radio.
It's time for our Tuesday Newsday panel. And today, it's Focus Alberta. We do that every Tuesdays. Matthew Wildcat is an assistant professor of Native Studies at the University of Alberta and a member of the Ermenskin Cree Nation. Hello, Professor. How are you?
Hi, how are you doing? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, very nice to hear from you. Vernon Watchmaker is chief of the Kehewin Cree Nation. Hello, Chief.
Hello. Thank you.
Yeah, it's very nice. Yeah, nice to hear from you today. Chief, I'd like to start with you. Why did the Assembly of Treaty Chiefs pass a motion of non-confidence in the Alberta government?
Well, first of all, I think we gotta remember that this has been a growing, long-standing issue. For First Nations, historically, we've had long-standing issues with not just with the provincial, but federal government as well. And we feel that, with the current situation with the separation, really kind of brought it to a point where it impeded frustration with the relationship. We understand Alberta's Danielle Premier Smith and the UCP government of the day's position, and we wanted to send a clear message that we're not in support, but at the same time we need to bring them to light that treaty law is law of the land. It's constitutionally protected rights, inherent rights that we need to address. We need to address those kind of issues before we even consider, those kind of movements that are taking place today.
All right, Professor Wildcat, Matthew Wildcat, why was this done, in your opinion?
I think part of what's going on right now with the context of Alberta separatism is that, at least in the minds of some Albertans, there's still some confusion over the stance of First Nations. And I think it's what the Chiefs have done here is really important. So they've already done this, in fact, back in May of 2025, after the initial bill which lowered the threshold for referendums was passed. Every treaty organization in the province, released a statement saying that this was a dangerous move to invite questions over separatism, and about a dozen First Nations also released their own individual statements. So there's already been a unanimous kind of position from First Nations going back, almost a year now, that they, are unanimously opposed to any movement for Alberta separation. So I think what's being done is just reaffirming that opposition, right? And I think there's still some elements of the Alberta separatist movement which believes that Indigenous peoples would be on board. There's some elements of the separatist movement which believe that Indigenous peoples would benefit from separatism. And I think this is the Confederacy of Treaty 6 Grand Chief Joey Pete from Sunchild First Nation. He put it really well in the press release on the vote of non-confidence. This UCP government has created conditions in Alberta that are unsafe for First Nations people. And I think the kind of the heart of that issue is that part of what the separatist movement is grappling with is, what would be, do Indigenous peoples continue to hold distinct rights in independent Alberta? And at least some elements of the separatist movement firmly believe that Indigenous peoples should be assimilated and have no distinct status within independent Alberta if that was to happen.
Yeah, I want to ask you about that, Chief Watchmaker, this statement that was issued after this non-confidence vote says the UCP government has created conditions in Alberta that are unsafe for First Nations peoples. How? Yeah. What are some examples? What do you mean by that? What's meant by that?
Well, I guess like I was mentioning, these long-standing issues for us. It's not just recent. It's historical wrongs that happened in the past. First Nations have gone through a lot, and definitely this is, with this kind of support for separatist movement has really brought out, I guess, a lot of hostility in terms of, I guess, the narrative that's been put out there about how our treaty rights and everything that comes with it. We understand that we need to, with our treaty to coexist peacefully and to share our lands and all that. But it seems to me that that's been, put to the back burner and really putting us in a position where we have to, defend ourselves. And there's a lot of stories that are coming from our nation members, and it goes down to the grassroots. Like, we have a lot of our kids that play in recreational hockey leagues. We have a lot of our nation members that utilize essential services or, services, provincially run services. And we're receiving a lot more, experiences that are, compounding. And pretty much can be seen as racism. And
okay,
we're seeing heightened levels of that, and we haven't seen that kind of level in a long time. And it's kind of bringing us back to that time where we went through a lot as First Nations, and I think we're going in the wrong direction. And when it comes to that kind of relationship.
Okay. I have a lot more questions. We'll have to stop here, however. We'll be right back on Focus Alberta today. This is News Radio.
Critical thinking is not dead.
Now you know with Rob Snow.
Returns on News Radio.
It's Focus Alberta. Matthew Wildcat with us, Assistant Professor, Native Studies, University of Alberta. Ermenskin Cree Nation. Vernon Watchmaker, Chief Kehewin Cree Nation. How does Professor Wildcat, the Alberta separatist movement, how does it threaten treaty rights?
Yeah, that's good. Just before we get into it, I'll help with the pronunciation. So I'm from Ermenskin, and the chief is from Kehewin.
Okay.
And for those listening, I know some people may know those terms better by the pronunciation. So this is something that they're grappling with right now. So I'll just give maybe a brief primer on treaty in 30 seconds or less. And so this is 150 years old now. Treaty 6, 1876, and then Treaty 7 was signed in 77, and Treaty 8 was signed in 1899. And so this is the founding of the province. Even before the province was founded, the treaties were signed. And so people's understanding of treaty actually, I think, lies at the heart of a lot of the confusion. And so many people in Alberta interpret treaties as something which provides benefits for First Nations, right? And so many people think this is, it provides special rights, and, some people in Alberta find it an affront that, Indigenous peoples or First Nation people would get distinct rights. But what was entered into when, Treaty 6 and 7 and 8 was signed was, from the perspective of First Nations peoples, is a sacred agreement with the Crown to work out how we live together and how we share land together, right? And, Cree people have a term for this, Wetaskiwin. Some people might know it as, it's the name of a modern-day city, Wetaskiwin, right? And this idea of how do we share land together and how do we ensure mutual prosperity lies at the heart of the philosophy of the treaty relationship between First Nations people and the Crown, and now Canadian society. And so, we want to continue to ensure that happens. And I think part of the concern with the Alberta separatism movement is because there's not a real explicit commitment and a strong commitment. In fact, like I said, there's many elements of the separatist movement which don't think Indigenous rights or First Nation rights and treaty rights should continue in an independent Alberta. Part of what we hear as First Nation people is that, okay, well, what will be said is that you should assimilate to the rest of Canada. Well, if we go look back at the policy of assimilation, what were the tools used? They were residential schools. There was a pass system which didn't allow First Nation people to leave the reserve. There was conditions on how First Nation people could sell agricultural products, which led to poverty in early reserve days. And so, when we're being told that there are, our treaty rights no longer exists, and we look back at the history of how people attempted to accomplish that, it left First Nations people in poverty and in misery. And so it's hard not to believe that would not happen again.
Okay. Chief Watchmaker, I mean, obviously, you can't defeat the UCP government yourself. What do you want to see happen here? What should happen now that this vote has happened?
I believe, with this vote, the statement that we put forward, we wanted to put a strong statement, a reminder that, we need to be at the table when there's discussions happening, whether if it's the MOU, that we believe that, with Canada adopting, I think it was C-15, on the United Nations Declaration Act, which in there has, speaking to free, prior, informed consent as essential markers in the relationship that we're trying to build, from being in a position of, like I mentioned, there was historical wrongs and whatnot. We feel that we're being set aside, and that and it has to do with also the legislations that were being put forward in the last, while, more so in the last while, in regards to water, and in regards to a lot of other things that are affecting and impacting us as treaty rights holders. And so we believe that we want to work with a government that respects our authority, our autonomy, and we want to be able to have real discussions on what was talked about true prosperity. Like I said before, when we signed the treaty, it was in that vision that we not only had shared peaceful coexistence, but we shared in the resources, and that might be the underlying, discussion in all of this, because I believe resources might be a key on this whole movement, and that, I guess, goes to the NRTA, the Natural Resource Transfer Agreement, and that was the feds giving administrative control over resources, and that was in 1930, and that essentially was done without our consent, was done without our participation. So that's what I'm saying. There's a lot of historical.
Okay. You mentioned the MOU. I want to pick up on that when we come back, between Alberta and the federal government, between Alberta and Canada. It mentions Indigenous peoples 19 times. There's a lot of language in there about respecting the rights, the cultures, promoting reconciliation. I want to ask you about some of the language that's in that MOU when we return. This is News Radio.
Now you know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
Here with Professor Matthew Wildcat and Chief Vernon Watchmaker. We've been talking about Alberta separatism today. Indigenous peoples, First Nations. We also want to talk about the MOU with your help. I mean, this is some of the language that's in there. Canada and Alberta are committed to respecting Aboriginal and treaty rights, engaging in early, consistent, and meaningful consultation with Indigenous peoples in a manner that promotes reconciliation and respects the rights and cultures of Indigenous peoples while advancing economic opportunities through Indigenous ownership and partnerships. Professor Wildcat, when you hear that, I mean, it sounds great. What do you think of it, the language in this MOU?
You're throwing a curveball at me, Rob. I haven't reviewed the MOU. Actually, it skipped off my desk when it came out. I think that is it's great. It sounds great, obviously, and I think it's become kind of really good. It's like a boilerplate language now in Canada, right? That business cannot be done, political decisions cannot be done without the involvement of First Nations and Métis and Inuit people, right? And I think that is a good standard that we should aspire to. I think when you when you go look at what's happening on the ground, it still remains very difficult to for First Nations for government and industry to engage in meaningful consultation with First Nations people. That we're still finding our stride when it comes to those practices. At the same point, the situation now looks pretty dramatically different than it did in, let's say, 1990, before a number of key decisions, which really affirmed that Aboriginal title was something that had to be respected in Canadian law.
Okay. Chief Watchmaker, what do you think when you hear language like that in an agreement between Alberta and Canada?
I believe the language about consultation and accommodation acknowledges obligations, for sure. But recognition must be matched with structural respect. Consultation is procedural, but treaty is constitutional. So I think, I think all of that language definitely might be seen as a positive step forward, but there's a lot of areas that need to be addressed, with the MOU. I'm not sure if it was recently known, just a couple weeks ago, Kehewin, we put in a judicial review on the MOU, and along with a couple other nations have done the same thing. So,
interesting.
At the end of the day, we feel that MOU was done behind closed doors.
Okay. I thank you to the both of you. We're right out of time, but I really appreciate your insight into those issues today on Focus Alberta. Talkback is next on News Radio.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to Talkback. It's 2 hours of debate and discussion on the big issues of the day. And today, geopolitics and what Canada should be doing now. Especially what Canada should be doing now. That's what we want to concentrate on today. Here are some questions just to get the conversation going for Talkback today. Given the instability in the world right now, what should Canada be doing at this moment in time? When you think about what's happening in the world, what should Canada be doing at this moment in time? And is Canada doing enough and moving fast enough, just given the state of the world right now? Just give it some thought and give us a call. We have phone lines available right now. As always, 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. Given the instability in the world right now, what should Canada be doing at this moment in time? And is it moving fast enough? Is it doing enough and moving fast enough? Given the state of the world right now. Again, 1-833-668-2577. Maybe you've heard this line before. Never let a crisis go to waste. Never let a crisis go to waste. And there have been politicians who have been commenting about this latest crisis, the war in Iran, and how it could actually present opportunities for Canada. For example, you have the Premier of Alberta, Danielle Smith, who is saying, look at the risk that's out there. Look at the Strait of Hormuz. Look at the oil that is shipped through that one choke point. And look at all the oil that we have here in Canada. What if we shipped more of it? Wouldn't that be good for Alberta? Wouldn't that be good for Canada? You have the federal minister of energy, top star in the Carney government in Ottawa. When he speaks, people listen. Tim Hodgson. And you listen to what he's saying. This is one of the top political news stories in the country today. Mr. Hodgson told CBC News he's taking calls from other countries. They want to know, what can you do, Canada? What can you do for us? What can you do to fill gaps in the global energy supply, given what's happening now in Iran? Quote, we have seen an uptick in inquiries, he said. Countries want to know how fast we can expand our energy exports. Well, maybe some of these countries won't like the answer, because for a long time in this country, a major natural resources project was not out of the question that it would take at least a decade, even longer, 15 to 20 years, not out of the question. Some major projects, as you well know, have been started, billions spent, and projects were abandoned. A recent report from the C.D. Howe Institute called A Crisis of Our Own Making detailed the time it takes to get projects going in this country. For example, it says the environmental assessment for the Northern Gateway pipeline took more than 11 years. 11 years just for the environmental assessment. And what happened? There is no Northern Gateway pipeline. The Trudeau government canceled it and then imposed the oil tanker ban on BC's North Coast. There's been a lot of hoping and praying that a project like that could be revived, but there's a lot of opposition to it as well from the government of British Columbia and from some First Nations. But that's just one example. It was all over the news in the last week about a shipment of LNG that arrived in Atlantic Canada all the way from Australia, 25,000 kilometers away. And of course, so many wondered, I was wondering myself, given the abundance of natural gas here and the know-how in that industry here, why would Canada ever need to import any LNG? Let alone from the other side of the world. In the Halifax Herald newspaper today, former New Brunswick Premier Frank McKenna says Atlantic Canada is becoming increasingly energy isolated. Energy isolated. He notes that most of what Alberta is producing is going to the United States still, while Atlantic Canada is importing natural gas from the U.S. along with 500,000 barrels of oil every day from foreign countries. And he says it doesn't have to be this way. And yet, this is the way it is. Can't get it west, can't get it east. Now, the government under Prime Minister Carney has vowed to, of course, speed all of this up, streamline all of this. Major Projects Office, approve projects faster. We will build things at speeds once thought unimaginable, the Prime Minister has said in the past. But is that what's happening? Is that what should be happening? What do you think? 1-833-668-2577. Given the instability in the world right now, what should Canada be doing at this moment in time? And are we doing enough of it? Moving fast enough, given the state of the world right now? 1-833-668-2577. The world's a complicated place. Just became more complicated in the last 4 days. So what should we be doing now in this country? I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. This is Talkback. So talk back on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Given the instability in the world right now, what should Canada be doing at this moment in time? And is the country doing enough, moving fast enough, given what's happening in the world right now? 1-833-668-2577. Give it some thought. Give us a call. Join the discussion. It's Talkback on a Tuesday. Let's try Sam in Lunenburg. Let's go to Sam in Lunenburg.
Hey,
Hello,
Rob.
Sam.
How's it going?
Yeah, very
Hello.
good, Sam. What would be your
Good.
answer?
So let's just become more of a self-reliant nation in every way we can, because we have the ability to take care of ourselves completely without any global trade. We can grow all the food that we need here to feed everyone in this country. We can produce all the energy we need to power everybody's home in this country. So let's do it. And let's also be forward thinking, I think, about where we get our energy from. And let's go nuclear. Let's not, play around with, renewables are okay, I guess. But when you just look at the geographical footprint that is required to produce the amount of energy that, we've come to be accustomed with using every day, I think that, the choice is pretty clear that nuclear is the easiest way to generate the same amount of power that we're used to while relying on fossil fuels without, having to destroy massive amounts of land to make, giant wind farms and solar fields. But yeah, let's just focus on what's important. Yeah, we can take care of ourselves. We don't need to rely on globalism in any way, really. We could be completely independent. Not saying we should cut ourselves off from the world, but
Sure.
when it comes to our basic needs, let's just take care of ourselves and focus on what's important. Let's,
for example, would you be supportive, for example, where you are in Atlantic Canada, you're importing 500,000 barrels of oil a day from other countries when we have one of the world's largest oil reserves in the world? Does that make sense? Why are we doing that?
No, it doesn't make any sense at all. Yeah. And I'm definitely for moving away from fossil fuels. I don't know, I don't know if I can imagine a future where we have 100% stopped using fossil fuels, but let's definitely move away from it where we can. Why wouldn't we want to have cleaner air in our cities and less pollution and, in our skies? No, it doesn't make sense, obviously, to be burning oil to import gas that you have under your feet. But I think, again, we should kind of...
But you prefer nuclear power.
Absolutely,
right?
Yeah. I just think when...
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, I think just when you look at the massive footprint that renewables require, and I think solar panels have their place, but on rooftops and over parking lots, not clearing out forests or draining wetlands.
Industrial size, solar installations. Okay, thank you, Sam. Yeah, you've got us off to a good start. That's interesting because I know that you're very environmentally conscious when you've called me before. Let's go to Ben in Nova Scotia. Hello, Ben.
Hey, how are you?
Off to a rocky start. Hello, Ben. Thank you for calling. You're on the air.
Oh my gosh, Rob, I've been meaning to talk to you for a long time now, man. How's it going, bro?
Everything is fine. What I want to know is what should this country be doing right now? The world is, it's a bit of a hot mess. What do you think Canada should be doing right now?
The world is a little bit of a hot mess. I don't think it's stopped since the early 1900s, to be honest with you, but here we go. Right. And I think Canada is a hot commodity right now. I think we got hot real estate. We're super hot. Everybody wants Canada.
So how do we maximize that? What should we concentrate on?
What do you mean by maximize?
Well, for example, let's take one example. It was in the news last week that you in Nova Scotia and New Brunswick, you're bringing in LNG from Australia, on the other side of the world. Liquefied natural gas is coming in to New Brunswick. Does that make sense?
Right on. Do we have any any of that here in Canada, or what's the reason why that we're bringing that in from
We
Australia?
have one of the world's largest reserves of natural gas in Canada.
Okay.
The problem is a pipeline getting it from the west. Would you approve a pipeline? Safe that went from Alberta to Atlantic Canada?
I sure do. Yeah.
You
Let
sure
the
do?
money flow. We need it.
We need it. All right. Thank you. Yeah, good to hear from you, Ben. Thanks for calling, being a first-time caller, making a contribution to the discussion. We're on our way. Love to hear from you. 1-833-668-2577. Think about what is happening in the world. Think about everything Canada has. What should Canada be doing right now? I'm Rob Snow. It's Talkback. It's News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Given the situation in the world right now, what should Canada be doing at this moment in time? Are we doing enough, moving fast enough, given the instability in the world? 1-833-668-2577. 3-4 lines available there. Join the discussion, please. Rick in Dartmouth. Hello, Rick.
Hey, Rob. How you doing, buddy? I know you're good.
Yeah, very good. Yeah. Go ahead.
First of all, if you looked at the opposite of the Earth in terms of St. John, it would be Western Australia. So in order to get natural gas from even further than that, you'd have to leave the planet. So it's as crazy as it could possibly be. I've called many times before regarding pipeline, and we need them. We need a pipeline from Alberta to here. The geopolitical situation is not new. This changes rapidly without notice, usually. I just want you to know that when things were ramping up a couple of weeks ago, I got both oil tanks filled up in the car. So I knew something bad was going to happen, and I'm good now with oil until September at least, or October, November even. So that's my little ability to react, but that doesn't help, my next door neighbor or whatever. So Mark Carney was part of the government that was an advisor to the government of Justin Trudeau, and they could have, it started the pipeline business quite some time ago. It just keeps getting delayed. And
sure.
In his view, a pipeline is bad. I'll tell you why oil is good. For obviously, there's a number of reasons. But one of the main reasons is, as the electrical grid becomes overtaxed here, for instance in Nova Scotia, the price seems to also keep going up. And eventually there's the tipping point where the price of electricity is going to be higher than what it would cost to create the same amount of heat with oil. And that's because the price of oil will go down with demand. So if everybody keeps switching off of oil will become cheaper, and electricity will become more expensive. And then everybody will go, well, why did we change to electricity? Which, I don't know about you, but my oil tank doesn't go off, all by itself. I mean, if I had to heat the house with just electricity, when the electricity goes off, of course, the furnace goes off, but we kind of know that that's going to happen. And, when you have high winds, so we always, build up a little bit of heat in the house, and it'll last for 12 hours. So, Alberta, please give us some of your oil. I know it's not your fault, and that's why I love you so.
All right. Thank you so much for your call. We will stop here and we'll reset things. I mean, when we talk about making the most of natural resources in this country, so much of the focus is Alberta. It's understandable. That's where so much of the oil is. But it's a big country with an abundance of all kinds of natural resources. But are we making the most of them? And should we be doing more with them, given the state of the world right now? What should Canada be doing at this moment in time? Is it doing enough, moving fast enough 1-833-668-2577. Have your say on Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Given the state of the world right now, the instability in the world, what should Canada be doing right now? At this moment in time, are we doing enough, moving fast enough, given the geopolitical situation? 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. Let's get back to the phones here. Let's take a call from Calgary. Let's get the Calgary point of view here. Neil is in Calgary. Thanks for calling, Neil.
Hi, Rob. Good to talk to you.
Hi, Neil. Yeah, good to talk to you.
The natural gas, we do have a LNG terminal on the west coast at Kitimat, and we could ship LNG all the way around to the east coast if we wanted to. I'm not sure exactly why they bought it from Australia, but maybe it was cheaper or something. Maybe the Australians are good marketers. I don't know. But I do know that
it doesn't make any sense. But does it really make any sense? Because if it's not coming from Australia, it's usually coming from the United States. There's 150 just in Nova Scotia. Really, Nova Scotia doesn't, like Atlantic Canada, Nova Scotia doesn't even need natural gas from Western Canada. It's got 150 trillion cubic feet offshore. Offshore of one province.
Exactly.
It's crazy.
Yeah. But there isn't an LNG terminal there that I'm aware of. They tried to build one at one point, but nobody seemed to want to do that. So, it's an interesting problem why we would, buy LNG from another country when we have it in our own country. Or we just have natural gas in our own country. Why are we buying it here? But anyways, that's the one problem. The other problem is oil in Alberta is kind of landlocked. We have a pipeline, which the federal government generously helped out with building it. It's going to take a while to fill that pipeline just because of marketing. I mean, somehow that oil has to be marketed around the world. So people always point to it and say, well, it's not full. Well, yeah, it's not full yet, but it will be full soon. It's just a matter of lining up contracts for all of that oil. But that oil isn't going to Eastern Canada that I'm aware of. It's probably on its way to Asia Pacific somewhere.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Sure. Yeah.
So
Asian customers.
We could build another pipeline to the coast, but I'm not sure that's going to help people in the east particularly. I guess.
Does this, in your opinion, just given what's happening in the world right now, does this help make the case, say, for an oil pipeline to Eastern Canada? Does it help reinforce the need for a project like that? What do you think?
Well, there's always been a need for that. It's just, is there a will to do it? So I think the problem has been more political than economics or how to do it or any of that. I think there is an oil pipeline that goes as far as basically crosses across into the United States. Maybe we have to load tankers there and take them down through the St. Lawrence Seaway to the refinery there on the East Coast that everybody wants to get to.
Right. But I think
but somehow
you're making the case, though, that there has to be more political will in the country to actually move these things along, right?
Oh, yeah, there has to be a will to do it. And so up till now.
Do you get the sense from the current government that it really does have the will? There's a lot of talk, but do you get the sense that they really mean it in Ottawa?
Not really. They say good words and all of that, but it's like other promises. I don't know whether there's really a political will to build a pipeline further east. I know people in the West aren't really interested in it. We have natural gas here, so it's the will really has to come from the east and then not from Western Canada. From a oil sales point of view, natural gas sales point of view, we can sell everything we produce, but we sell it at a discount to the U.S., which is kind of insane as a country that we produce oil, sell it to the U.S. I think it's a $15 or $16 discount today. Sometimes it's 20, depending on the price.
Right.
They turn around, refine it, and sell it
back to us
at the world price. Well,
yeah. Okay.
Not really back to us, but at the world price in their own country.
I see. Okay. I see, Neil. Yeah, very enlightening. Thank you for your insight today, Neil, and for thinking about it and for taking the time to call Talkback today. We'll be right back. Mike, hang on the line. Tim as well in Nova Scotia today. Glad you're paying attention. We'll get your opinions next on Talkback here on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Given the instability in the world right now, what should Canada be doing at this moment in time? Are we doing enough? Are we moving fast enough? Given the geopolitics, 1-833-668-2577. And have your say on Talkback today. Mike in Dartmouth, thanks for waiting. Mike, you're on the air. Hi, Mike.
Hey, buddy. How are you today?
Yeah, very good, Mike. Thank you for calling. Yeah, what's your opinion, Mike?
Listen, I just want to apologize for the, apparently my Tourette's only comes out when I'm driving.
That's okay, Mike. Don't worry about that. We've all been there. Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, listen, you know what? The governments at the federal level and provincial as well, have failed us for decades. My thing, Rob, is that the government needs to stop hesitating on what should have happened at least 30 years ago. We should have those pipelines. We should have, the natural gas. There was companies in the day that were interested in coming in and getting those resources out of the ground. Canada, oh my God, we could be like a world leader as far as financially and the resources that we could be selling to other countries. And I don't understand it, Rob. I just really don't understand it. Like we need to have a federal government that steps in and says, listen, it benefits Canada to run a pipeline both ways, over across BC and down to the Maritimes. And, the stuff that we could build in Cape Breton, of course, that should have been major container piers there in Cape Breton. I mean, it comes right in off the ocean and you're right at Glace Bay and that area. And it's, we could have developed all this so many years ago. And like I said, Canada would have benefited financially so much. We'd be in such a different, we wouldn't be facing some of the things like housing and healthcare, and we would have had that money to have an elite system going on. And it just baffles me that I personally, you mentioned it there a few minutes ago. I don't see this. I don't see Carney doing any of this, like from his books and, his way of thinking. He's not interested in running any fossil fuel programs or anything.
So you're skeptical. You're skeptical, Mike. Thank you for your call. Okay, extremely skeptical. Okay. I'm just curious, does an event like this in Iran, and it's already costing, Canadians, around here, gas went up 6 cents a liter. Like, overnight, boom, up 6 cents a liter. There are lots of, higher gas prices, higher energy prices. What is that going to mean for the inflation rate? If inflation starts moving higher because of higher energy prices, what's that going to mean for interest rates? Can anybody afford higher interest rates right now? What if your mortgage rate went up? How would you be able to handle that? What would this mean for the global economy? There's lots of moving parts here. Danielle Smith, the Alberta premier, had a news conference yesterday that was supposed to be about healthcare, but a lot of the questions were about the oil price. And the premier said, well, look at what's going on and look at what we've been trying to do here in Alberta. And another pipeline to the West Coast makes sense. Is she just stating the obvious? What do you think? Is this, another opportunity for a wake-up call for this country? To Beaver Valley, Ontario. Let's try that caller. John. Hello, John.
Hello, sir. How are you today?
Yeah, very good, John. Yeah, good to hear from you. What's your opinion here? What should we be doing in this country?
I think what we really need to do on a provincial and federal level is speed up Parliament, and I have a plan for that. If you'll just bear with me.
Love to hear it. All right.
Yeah, I would like to repurpose dog shock collars for all parliamentarians.
For dog shock collars.
I'm sorry?
Dog shock collars.
That's correct, sir. My plan would be to have a jury type selection system where you had 12 jurors with the controllers for the shock collars. Now, they would sit in Parliament, both provincial and federal, and when a question is proposed in the House of Commons or provincial legislature, if the answer is a bunch of word salad, that those selected people would have the opportunity to zap the parliamentarian to answer the question.
Okay. Shock therapy for the politicians.
Absolutely.
Right. It sounds like you're signing up to be the jury foreperson, I guess.
No. I wouldn't be the right person because I would just be holding the button down constantly.
Oh, I see. All right. Okay.
But I thought,
well, John, to borrow a phrase from the Prime Minister, we have to take the world as it is, not as we wish it to be. What I'm really looking for are some concrete ideas. This country has such enormous opportunity. It has such an abundance of riches. What should we be doing with it right now, given the state of the world? 1-833-668-2577, outside of putting, shock collars around the necks of politicians during question period. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Given the situation in the world right now, situation in the Middle East being the latest event to come our way, but what should Canada be doing at this moment in time? Are we moving fast enough? Are we doing enough just given the geopolitics that we're seeing every night on the news? 1-833-668-2577. Have your say on Talkback, like Tim in Nova Scotia. Hello, Tim.
Hey, Rob.
Hi, Tim. What's your opinion?
I know you were talking about good to hear from you, too. I know you hear from me a lot. I know you were talking about Nova Scotia natural gas there earlier. Now, I don't know if you're aware, I did a quick chat search there, and roughly, potentially, Nova Scotia has about 100, TCFs, trillion cubic foot of natural gas between offshore and onshore.
So, the estimate for offshore, and this is from the Premier of Nova Scotia, is 148 trillion cubic feet, TCF.
Okay, this is what it's just giving me on Chat GDP. But either way, why are we importing from other places, especially when you have like GoBurrow? Like I'm a journeyman steam fitter, and they've been talking about GoBurrow now since has to be 2013, 14. So we're talking like, what, we'll say 10, 12 years ago? And
meanwhile, for listeners who might be unaware, like me, who are unaware, what is that? Go-Borough, what is that?
It's up towards like Cape Breton, the Causeway, Cape Breton, Nova Scotia area. It's an LNG plant.
An LNG plant. All right.
Yeah. So like, and it's supposed to be like 10 years producing or something like that. Like, I was looking up the facts earlier for it. So like, all these projects are being put up, and one of your callers earlier said we need more demand in the east or more will in the east. At the end of the day, the people that are stopping it is Quebec. Quebec they don't want no pipeline through their province, so they're stopping Newfoundland, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, PEI. They're hindering all of us while they're profiting off of the power they're getting from Newfoundland. But
I do wonder if even the tide is going to turn in the province of Quebec. I mean, in the province of Quebec, they like to heat their homes and turn the lights on as well. So I just wonder if the tide might be turning on that.
Well, let's put it this way. Some people from Quebec that I know and have met, they think differently. They've got a history of keeping the resources in the ground so it doesn't affect their $13 billion that they get from the equalization funds. Meanwhile, like I said, they're getting hydro from Newfoundland at a cheaper rate and selling it down to the States. So I think they're too crooked to even think about other people. They're more concerned about themselves.
Yeah. See, that's not my take. And when they've done public opinion research, and they've done public opinion research a lot over the last few years about pipelines and the public appetite for building pipelines, even a majority of Quebecers support constructing pipelines. For the political class, yes, you're right. It's different. They really do have a vision of clean, renewable electricity driven by Hydro-Quebec that's publicly owned. Absolutely, you're right there. But average working, middle class Quebecers, are they opposed to a pipeline that would make them more energy secure, especially now, less dependent on the United States, given the situation with the United States right now? Yeah, they're more pro pipeline than they ever have been in the past. Not as much as they are in, say, other parts of the country like Alberta or Atlantic Canada, but they're not as opposed, I think, as some people would think. I thank you for your call. And there's enormous opportunity there as well in natural gas, places like Anacostia Island. What should we be doing now in this country? Just given the situation around the world, with Iran being the latest that we have to confront. That's hour number 1 of Talkback. We'll be back right after the latest breaking news. This is News Radio.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Given the instability in the world, what should Canada be doing at this moment in time? Are we doing enough? Are we moving fast enough given the state of the world right now? Welcome to hour number 2 of Talkback. I'm Rob Snow. We spent a lot of time in the first hour talking about natural resources, developing our natural resources at greater speeds. Danielle Smith, the Alberta Premier, was having a news conference yesterday. It was supposed to be about healthcare, but given what's happening with oil prices and the jump in oil prices, she was asked about her thoughts on this. And let's listen to what the Alberta Premier had to say. She said, hey, another pipeline to the West Coast makes a lot of sense. What do you think? Let's listen to this.
We're watching with interest about what our friends and allies are going to need. There are, as I understand it, a number of ships that are anchored in the Strait of Hormuz and some threats about not granting passage. And if that occurs, that's going to cause a lot of disruption. But we're here to help. But part of the way in which we can help is, of course, with expansions to the West Coast pipelines. The fact that Trans Mountain allows for us to have a clear line of sight to our Asian partners in order to be able to assist them. The fact that there's already an expansion that has been announced, and it just underscores the need for our 1 million barrel a day bitumen pipeline to the West Coast, because if this kind of uncertainty continues, it just demonstrates that the world and our trading partners and allies need to have a stable source of supply, and that's what we are.
The Premier of Alberta. Then you have the Federal Minister of Energy, rising star in the government, very powerful person, Tim Hodgson. I would say, in my own opinion, he's probably the second most powerful person in this government right now. It's Tim Hodgson. When he speaks, everyone listens. And this is a big story. Mr. Hodgson telling the public broadcaster they're calling again from other countries. What do you have, Canada? What can you do for us, given what's happening in Iran? And this, even before the war started, he was talking about what he's hearing from other countries about the potential for energy exports, especially in LNG. Let's listen to this.
From a geopolitical perspective, what I hear everywhere I go, whether it's Germany, whether it's the UK, whether it's China, whether it's India, whether it's my colleagues who were recently in Japan or Korea, what we hear is all of those countries are interested in energy transition. They view LNG as a really important transition fuel. It gives them a much cleaner alternative to what most of them are doing today, which is burning coal. And what we hear over and over again is with the dramatic increase in electricity around the AI phenomenon, our allies expect to be using that transition fuel, expect to use a lot more of it for a longer period of time.
Yeah, that was late last week in Ottawa. So lots of talk because LNG is primarily right now a West Coast thing, but it's not just a Western Canada thing. In the Halifax Chronicle Herald, really good piece there. Really interesting advice and a warning from Frank McKenna, the former and very popular Premier of New Brunswick. The headline is, as East-West pipeline divide persists, Atlantic Canada's energy isolation is only going to get worse. A little bit. Atlantic Canada risks losing a guaranteed pipeline access to Western Canadian energy while still relying heavily on overseas fuel. A situation former New Brunswick Premier Frank McKenna says threatens regional growth and Canada's energy sovereignty. Our energy sovereignty is at risk. He says having control over our energy resources is essential for a country. In our case, there's a significant divide between the West and the East that we need to overcome. Western Canada continues to export oil and natural gas to the U.S., often at discounted prices, while Atlantic Canada imports LNG from overseas, along with roughly 500,000 barrels per day of foreign crude. We have resources, we should be using them, McKenna said. Since European buyers are seeking alternatives to both Russian and American supplies, he said Canada is missing a strategic opening. They want it from Eastern Canada, and we can't give it to them because of the politics of Canada. The political uncertainty in Quebec adds another layer of risk for Atlantic Canada, he said, as the Parti Québécois is leading in the polls. There's a provincial election scheduled this year. We're facing a possible referendum in Quebec. We're on the other side of the fault line. Anything dramatic that happens in Quebec affects all of Atlantic Canada. We haven't been able to get an oil pipeline, and we haven't been able to get gas through. There's existing pipeline infrastructure inside Quebec, but Atlantic Canada cannot freely access natural gas moving through that province. He wants Ottawa to step in to prevent Quebec from restricting access to what he views as vital national energy corridors. End quote. And of course, there was the news late last week about a shipment of LNG traveling 25,000 kilometers to snake its way, I guess, from Australia to New Brunswick. Can somebody make it make sense? 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. That's the state of play right now. What should Canada be doing given the state of the world? Have your say on Talkback. It's hour number 2. There are lots of lines available, and we'd love to hear from you. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Keith is calling from Ottawa. He's up next on Talkback. Thanks for calling, Keith. You're on the air.
Hi, how are you?
Yeah, very good, Keith.
I'm having a little bit of hard time being McKenna. What was McKenna when Brian Gallant put the moratorium on hydraulic fracturing of natural gas in New Brunswick? You know, there's 80 trillion cubic feet of natural gas under the Frederick Brock Shale Formation in New Brunswick. But since 2014, they've had a ban on fracking.
Well, they had a ban on fracking as well in Nova Scotia. There was a change in government in Nova Scotia. They recently lifted the ban. Of course, there's a lot of opposition to that as well. But the Premier of Nova Scotia says we just can't keep saying no.
No, I mean, the same thing applies to New Brunswick. They've got all kinds of natural gas there. And I mentioned about the Enbridge Line 5 to you before. I mean, there's in court in Michigan, there could be some consequences there too, but I haven't heard too much coverage on that in the Canadian press. And if Carney was really serious about getting these resources, why hasn't he removed that tanker ban on the West Coast yet?
Very good question.
They want people to invest in a pipeline to the West Coast, but there's still that tanker ban there. So I don't, I can't see why that hasn't been removed.
Yeah, neither can I.
And
no disagreement from me.
When the German leader came over and spoke to Trudeau 3 years ago, when the Ukraine war started, about getting gas, and Trudeau said, "Oh, there's no business model for it. There's no business opportunity." Where was everybody then? I mean, there should have been.
I mean, you can't say where was everybody then. Well, a lot of us were up in arms about that and thought it didn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah. And the other thing that bugs me before I go is, why are we talking about spending all that money on fast rail just to make it more convenient from the rich, the elite, to go from Montreal to Quebec City, when we've got all these pipelines to build? I mean, there seems to be more talk about that. That seems to be further along on track than getting the pipelines to the east. It just bugs me that
the government is very hot on that project. High-speed rail between Quebec City and Toronto.
There again, is to get some votes in Quebec. That's what it is. And
but there's a growing opposition to it in Quebec because they see a kind of another Mirabel coming on, Keith, with people's properties being expropriated and that sort of thing. A fiasco in the making.
I Googled the fast trains in Britain, and they're not all that. Apparently, they're very, very rough riding. And can you imagine with our terrain, with the frost we get here? I mean, people don't enjoy the ride. Sure, they get there quicker, but it's a very uncomfortable ride. Anyways, that's my point today. So.
All right, good. I'm glad you feel better now. I would just, point out one more thing from this thing in the Herald today. The Halifax Herald is it's very eye-opening. If you're in Atlantic Canada, just energy isolation, like importing LNG from Australia makes no sense. Importing 500,000 barrels a day of foreign oil into Atlantic Canada makes no sense. Mark Oberstetter, head of research for upstream companies at energy consultancy Wood Mackenzie, points to a looming commercial deadline, 10-year contracts guaranteeing space on TC Energy Corp's Canada Mainline, the main pipeline sending Western Canadian natural gas eastward, expire at the end of December. They provide reserve capacity that feeds into the Trans-Quebec and Maritime pipeline. But since there isn't a direct pipeline connecting Quebec and New Brunswick, the gas must currently loop through the United States before re-entering the Maritimes. Gosh almighty, why do we do this to ourselves? Once those contracts lapse, Atlantic Canada will lose guaranteed access to Western Canadian supply. In the absence of new infrastructure, the region could rely more heavily on the Maritimes and Northeast Pipeline, an aging system that was reversed in recent years to carry U.S. natural gas north. The shift effectively places Atlantic Canada at the end of a U.S. supply chain, exposing the region to American price volatility and competition from U.S. buyers. Obstetter said, would we prefer not to have that dependency? I would put that to you. Would you prefer not to have that dependency? Well, something needs to be done about that. 1-833-668-2577. More of your calls are just ahead. I'm Rob Snow. This is Talkback. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Let's go to Maureen, is in Calgary today on Talkback. Thank you for calling, Maureen.
Yes.
Hi, Maureen.
I agree with, is it McKinnon who speaks about?
McKenna. Frank McKenna.
McKenna. Yeah. I agree with him. We need to have the east-west pipeline. The West, not so sure because BC isn't quite sure that they want it, but for the East, absolutely. And to find out, which I didn't know, that the Atlantic Canada is getting U.S. product that they actually.
Oh yes.
I don't understand that. We need to have the consistency in Canada. The U.S. Trump does not want any of our energy. He says he's got enough now that he's got Venezuela. So I think we have to quit giving the U.S. any of our gas and oil products at, discount price and just take care of Canada. I think now with Carney going out and to different countries doing trade talks with them, he's drumming up more business so we don't have to rely on the U.S. for anything much. So I think the way this has happened with Trump, I think this is like the fire that was lit underneath us just to go to a different direction. And, let's get this done and people in the East can have all of our, or we'll share from Alberta for the oil and gas. I'm happy with that.
Yeah, 500,000 barrels per day of crude oil from foreign countries. A lot of that from the United States into Atlantic Canada. And almost all of the natural gas comes from outside of that region when we have it in abundance in this country. They have an abundance in their own region that they don't tap into.
I know. It's boggling my mind.
Yeah, mind-boggling. Yeah, it is mind-boggling, isn't it?
Well, yeah. I mean, I've been a Canadian all my life, an Albertan all my life, and I don't know what is happening down east in regard to that. I just found out on your show that they're, what about the tariffs? When they're getting that energy back to the Atlantic provinces, it's probably a horrible price that they're paying.
I mean, Frank McKenna was a Liberal premier in New Brunswick. He was once so popular, his party won every seat in the legislature. He's kind of seen as a blue liberal, what we call a business-minded liberal. He's gone on to have a career. He's been on the board of big banks, and so when he talks, people listen. He kind of, he's an influential voice in that part of the country. And he said what he's talking about is we are isolated. We are suffering from energy isolation here. We don't have any of our own infrastructure to do this. We're relying on foreign oil, foreign natural gas. And what happens if it's unlikely now, but what happens if Quebec decides to separate? You've got 4 provinces and they're kind of cut off. It's crazy that they would do this to themselves.
Yeah,
it's
and
totally
I'm
insane.
not sure of the business that the provinces each have with each other, but I think it needs to be consistent where they're not charging each other tariffs or whatever, but they need to have sort of a cohesive provinces that have free trade or whatever, I don't really know.
Yes.
They have to cooperate, do what we can with other countries that we can import and export. Forget about the U.S. because obviously they don't care about us except for our oil and gas, but they don't want it. So keep it for Canadians and, get that pipeline made. And I mean, the port is there in Halifax. And I don't know if there's a port in the Arctic or not. But, we need to take care of ourselves.
Well, Churchill, everybody's hot on Churchill right now. If there's a port to be expanded, it would be Churchill, Manitoba right now. Thank you for your call, Maureen, and your concern and your interest in the topic today. What should we be doing in this country? Maureen had some ideas. What are yours? Love to hear them on Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Given the instability in the world, Iran being the latest flashpoint, what should Canada be doing? What should Canada be doing to be more secure, to be more prosperous? Is Canada doing enough? Is it moving fast enough? Given what's happening in the world right now. That's what we've been discussing today on Talkback. There's plenty of time to take your call on this. 1-833-668-2577. The wait won't be too long at all. Let's go to Mark in Calgary. Thanks for calling, Mark.
Hey, Rob. Hope you're doing well.
Yeah, very good, Mark. Thank you.
I'd like to say I totally agree with Maureen there on all of her points. And your questions were, are we doing enough? And should we be doing more? I don't think we're doing enough. And yes, we should be doing more. I think that the pipeline.
What kind of things should we be doing?
We should be building those pipelines east and west. We should be building refineries to refine our own oil and gas instead of relying on other countries or even the U.S. for that matter. I mean, Carney has alienated the West or the U.S., so we need to start doing things for ourselves. And the biggest problem I see with all of this is the Liberals. They got to get out of the way and stop putting all these restrictions on Alberta unlocking the $178 trillion that's sitting below our feet. We need to unlock that. If we unlock that, I say Canada gets back to unity and being proud again, and the Alberta separatists will no longer be because everything's going to be good for everybody.
Yeah, that's such a good point that you're making. Yeah, especially on the national unity question and the I don't know how popular the separatist movement is if it's moved above 30%, but it's such a source of frustration for so many people, and even the MOU doesn't seem to have placated very many people.
You know what, Rob? The separatist thing, I never in my life thought that I would ever be in favor of that, but the way things are with the Liberals making things so hard for Alberta to prosper for the whole country, I'm for it. If they don't step out of the way, I'm voting like I want to separate, because I know Alberta could do so well on its own. If Canada doesn't want to be a part of it, then so be it. Albertans are frustrated.
Let's hope it,
we need the help of the Liberal Party, right?
Right. Okay. Thank you for your call. I appreciate your call. Mr. Carney was just in India, of course. There's an interesting article in the Globe and Mail today about how just thirsty India is for Canada's resources and how it is set up just so perfectly to refine the heavy Alberta oil. Listen to this. India will be the single largest source of global oil demand growth through the year 2050, as millions move toward basic energy security, according to the International Energy Agency. India has built one of the world's most complex refining infrastructures. Engineering marvels like the Jamnagar complex are specifically calibrated to crack heavy sour crude, the exact molecular profile of Canadian oil sands, into the high-value plastics, chemicals, and fuels required to build modern cities. Far from a sunset industry, our heavy oil is the precise chemical input that India's multi-billion-dollar industrial machine was designed to consume. And yet this natural partnership is being held hostage by a lack of export capacity. The instability of traditional energy routes makes the case for a Canadian alternative undeniable. By building a secure bridge to India, we provide the stability necessary to lift millions out of precarious living and help end global energy poverty. We have the supply, the institutional knowledge, and the expertise within our workforce to create prosperity for Canadians today and generations to come. Isn't that something? I never knew that until I read that. The economic proof of concept, the writer continues, already exists. The completion of the Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion was a vital first step, finally allowing Canadian energy to reach global markets in significant volumes. In its first full year of operation, TMX nearly tripled West Coast export capacity, narrowed the single customer discount that has long lost Canada billions. That translated into an estimated $13.6 billion in additional revenue in just 1 year, including roughly $2 billion in new federal tax revenue, supporting schools, hospitals, and communities across the country. But one pipeline is not going to make us an energy superpower, it says. We'll be right back. Have your say on Talkback. That's just one angle. There are many more out there that we can explore today. What should Canada be doing right now, given what's happening in the world? This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Tony's out in Calgary today, and he's called in to Talkback. What should we be doing in this country, Tony? What should we be doing in this country, given everything that's happening in the world right now?
Well, Rob, I worked 40 years in the oil industry, and I'm retired now, but the provinces of Quebec, New Brunswick, and Nova Scotia are sitting on a tremendous amount of LNG resources. And Nova Scotia has banned fracking, so they won't develop it. Quebec has banned pipelines, so they won't develop it. But Europe is right there. It's begging for our LNG. We don't even have to build a pipeline if they would develop the resources, which would help all of Canada and themselves. And that's my point.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Yeah.
So I don't know. I actually don't think a lot of people in the Maritimes realize that. My two son-in-laws are from Halifax, and I talked to their parents. They have no idea this, and they're highly educated people. And it's kind of frustrating that the word I don't think has really gotten out over there. It's hard to say.
Yeah. Well, I think the premier there, progressive conservative premier Tim Houston, is trying to change the channel. Let's play this. I've wanted to play this all day. So Tim Houston, he made a video about this, about the potential for offshore natural gas, maybe even fracking for gas onshore in Nova Scotia. There was a moratorium that was imposed by the previous Liberal government in that province. Oh, no, you can't frack for gas. Gosh, perish the thought. You're never going to frack for gas in Nova Scotia. But there's tremendous potential, he says, offshore. He made a video about us. Not that anyone has seen it. It has like 1,400 views, 1,400 views on YouTube. I'm probably 3 of those views just myself. This is about a minute and a half. Let's play a little bit of this, okay? This is Tim
Canada
Houston.
uses heat homes, run generators, power facilities and factories, and even entire communities. And it's a big country. That's a lot of natural gas. But consider this. Nova Scotia actually has enough natural gas to meet all of this demand, all of Canada's entire current demand, not just for 1 year or 5 years. We have enough natural gas to meet the current demand for over 30 years. Stop and think about that. Why then is it that today, not only do we not supply any natural gas to other parts of Canada, we don't even meet any of our own needs here at home? And the worst part is, The gas we are using, we buy at inflated prices from others. This drives up your power bill, and it's insane. It should never have come to this. But good news, it doesn't need to be like this.
Introducing Nova Natural Gas.
Nova Scotians have a long history of working the waters off our shores. It's in our DNA. Our fishing industry, which produces billions of dollars of wages and investments every year. Our ports, which generate billions of dollars in wages and economic activity every single year. And so too can offshore energy generate wages and investments and royalties. And it's not new. You may remember the offshore industry thriving under Premier John Hamm in the late 90s and early 2000s. It brought in over $4 billion in direct royalties, cash, to the province that was used to pay doctors and nurses and teachers and invest in roads, all the things that we desperately need today.
Yeah, and none of that has changed. None of that has changed, especially in Nova Scotia. I mean, if you've been paying attention to the news at all, it's been all over the news there. Budget crunch, $1.2 billion budget deficit, massive provincial debt on track to hit like $30 billion in a province with a population of a little more than 1 million people. And every day there's a different news story about something the government needs to cut: arts grants, funding for museums, scholarship programs for students, because the government is saying, look at the financial state of this province. But it's a province that, according to the Premier's own account, has 150 trillion cubic feet of offshore natural gas just sitting there. And he says the pipeline infrastructure is already in the ground. And there are markets waiting for it. The domestic market, all of Atlantic Canada, New England, European markets. This is why I press upon the listeners that it's not just an Alberta thing. It's not just an Alberta thing. This is a Canadian issue. Thank you for your call. John is in Calgary. Thank you for calling. John, you're on the air, John.
Yeah. Hi, Rob. I just wanted, there was a few things that you guys were talking about today that I just want to chime in on. One of them was, one of your callers said that the federal government helped out, or they built the Trans Mountain pipeline. If you remember, that was Kinder Morgan that was going to build that. And then because of the obstacles that were created, and then John Horgan, the NDP leader, and the environmentalists were able to take it into court, delay it, add expense to it, and Kinder Morgan got wet feet. And so the federal government did come in and buy it and built it at about 10 times what it should have cost. And we should have been taxing Kinder Morgan on that. It's kind of like having a pool party and throwing somebody into the pool, realizing you can't swim, and then you go in and rescue them and then pat yourself on the back for being the hero. The other thing that I wanted to point out is
that's such a great history lesson, John. Thank you for reminding our listeners of what actually happened there. Appreciate that.
And
what was your other point?
Thing is with respect to revenue on a pipeline. So here in Alberta, Trans Mountain, if you do the math on this, every time a barrel of oil comes out of the ground, there's a royalty on it that's between 2 and 9%, depending upon the type of oil, age of the well, et cetera, et cetera. But if you take an average of 5%, if you take the current capacity of the Trans Mountain, it's 880,000 barrels. If you go 880,000 barrels a day times $50 a barrel, so it's trading at 70, but if you take $50 a barrel times 5%, that's $2.2 million a day in tax revenue. And that's only from the royalty. That has nothing to do with all the jobs, all the other taxation, et cetera, that goes along with it. So with respect to what we've got to do, we've got to get rid of Bill C-69, got to get rid of Bill C-48, got to get these pipelines built.
Such great analysis, John. I'm so happy that you called today and broke that down in very simple terms that everyone can understand. Very important information that you just provided there for our listeners. I appreciate that. This is Talkback. Time for one or two more calls. Love to hear from you today. What should we be doing in this country? John and Tony had some great ideas. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Just watching the markets here. There's about an hour left in the regular trading session in both Toronto and in New York, Wall Street. And the markets they're attempting to make a comeback. I was looking at the Dow this morning, was down at one point about 1,200 points. And now it's down less than 300 points, which, beats being down more than 1,200 points. But now the loss is just 0.5% on the day. The NASDAQ was down about 3% at one point today. It's down less than 1% right now. So there's a bit of a comeback. Not so for the Toronto market, though. The TSX down about 800 points right now. So that's a loss of 2.3%. The oil price earlier in the day, oil traded as high as $78 US a barrel. And it's been falling ever since it hit that level. It's at $72 US right now. So it's up only, I say, about 1% on the day. But in the last 5 days, up about 10%. And gas prices shot up in lots of cities across the country. A bit of a shock for people filling up today. Neil in Sylvan Lake. Thanks for waiting, Neil. And thanks for calling. You're on the air.
Hey, Rob. How are you today?
Yeah, very good, Neil. How are you?
Well, I was just thinking about this country. And I think that we have to have a separation from the east to the west. We don't have to change the name. It'd be Western Canada, Eastern Canada. See who does best, and then make up later if you want. Because it's just... I'm serious. It's not going to work. We're fighting each other and it's going nowhere.
Okay. Well, maybe if we stuck together, fought together for a better country, maybe that's a better alternative than, having Eastern Canada and Western Canada.
This has been going on for years. Have a little separation and then kiss and make up later.
Okay. All right. A little separation and kiss and make up later. Maybe that's easier. Maybe that's easier said than done. I don't know. How many divorced couples actually do reconcile, Neil?
Well,
you do hear stories about, couples who, they divorce and they get back together. But, what's the percentage of those?
Well, you wait and see if the West separates from the East, if they don't start developing their own resources.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things we're trying to address today, sir. It's why we were asking the question, what should Canada be doing right now? I mean, it's been all over the news. These are some of the headlines. Nervous nations calling Canada's energy minister after Iran strikes. Mideast war driving up European natural gas prices, highlighting Canada's potential. Canada's energy minister, a crisis is a terrible thing to waste. A new era of alignment, unlocking Canada's energy investment potential. Never let a crisis go to waste. Are we doing that? We'll be back tomorrow. Brand new topic, more of your calls, and always the latest breaking news on News Radio.